In this video, we talk about the date trunc function and why you might want to use it instead of the tochar function. Alright, so let's get into it. Now I am using the Pagilla database for this example. If you need it, link in the description down below. Show you how to get it if you want to follow along. And I just did a simple select all query from our rental table, and that's because our rental table has several times in it. We got a rental date, return date, last update date and time. So we have some stuff to play with. Also, I want to point out that I have another video called tochar, like updating timestamps with tochar, the tochar function. And so I recommend checking that one out as well. And I'll try and explain the difference between the tochar function versus the date trunc function, which is what this video is about. So I'll try and cover the differences. Anyway, let's go ahead and select the rental date column, and then we'll go ahead and also throw in the return date column. So we got these two columns, and basically, you know, it's a time frame from when they rented the video. Basically, it's a video rental store or DVD. So they rented it this day, returned it this day, and we kind of have a range of how long they rented it for, or we could calculate that. So we have rental and return date. Now let's throw in our first date trunc. We'll go with date trunc parenthesis, and then we throw in the first argument, which is the day or whatever we want to basically extract from our timestamp. And I'll have a link to this website down below that shows you what you can go ahead and extract from your timestamp. So we're just doing day right quick. So day, and then the next argument is going to be the column that has the timestamp in it, which would be our rental date column. So if we run it, we have a slight issue because I left out a comma, and so I'll run it again, and boom. So here is our column now with our date trunc executed. And basically what it did was it left our year in here, and then it also left our month, and it left our day, but it zeroed out everything after the day. So our time is set for 0000, basically like midnight, I guess, of that day. So basically it wiped out all the times. You see that it used to be 8/28/11, now it's 000. So basically that's how the date trunc works, is anything after the field you put in here gets put down to 0 or 1. So if I throw a month in here and run it real quick, you see that we have the year still, and we have the month still, and then the day gets brought down to 1. They don't have 0 days in a month, so I guess they can't go to 0. So they throw a 1 in here, but if you scroll down, you see it's all 1s. And then when you get to June, sometime in here, there we go. You see that the month updates, but it still says 1. So that's essentially how it works. Conversely, if we throw a minute in here, we will see the year, the month, the day, the hour, and then the minute, and then the milliseconds seconds will be truncated or brought down to 0. So that's how it works. Basically, anything after whatever you put in here gets brought down to 0 or 1, right? I think I said that a couple times, but that's how it works. So now I'm going to switch this back to day, and I want to throw in a tochar function real quick so we can do a little bit of a comparison. So tochar, and then this one works opposite for some reason. And I'll do my rental date and then my argument, and come over here, run it real quick. So as you can see, the date trunc leaves the year, month, day, zeros out the time, whereas the tochar just shows you whatever you put in here. So you have a little bit more flexibility on the tochar function. You can be like, okay, you got that, and you want year in there too, so you could go ahead and throw that in there and really format your date field. But see, the thing about the tochar function is that it converts your date into a string. So your date is no longer a date field where you can do math with it or filter, basically, you know, a greater than this date or less than this date. You can't do it with a string because you can't do less than or greater than words, right? You can't, like, it doesn't know what's greater than or less than when it comes to words. Whereas with the date, you can tell what's before it or after it, and so on. So tochar converts your date into a string, and so that has certain limitations. Whereas date trunc keeps your date as a date. It just, rounds it essentially to whatever argument you plug in here. So it rounds it to the nearest day. And so then you can do things like math. So we could throw a day minus day in here for return date. So the date they rented it minus the date they returned it should give us a spread of how long they rented it for. And we see that they rented it for, I got the equation backwards, but 4 days, 8 days, 10 days, etc. Whereas if I came over here with the tochar function and I try and do some math, minus, and we have, what was it? Return date. We run into an error. Because again, you can't take a string and subtract a string from it. It doesn't work like that, right? A series of words and letters can't be subtracted from another series of words and letters, at least not like this. Now, one thing you could do with the tochar function, however, is plug it into the formula. So rental date minus return date. And let me delete this year out of here and delete this out of here. And boom, we can do math that way. Now note, there's a difference in the days here, so there must be some rounding thing going on based on hours, I assume. So you'll want to be really careful and cautious if you're using the tochar function and doing math with it, because it can cause some issues, obviously. So there you go, there's the date trunc function versus the tochar function. Basically, if you're doing anything with dates and math and comparing dates, you want to use the date trunc function. And then if you want to convert that date or time into something like prettier, you can go ahead and use the tochar function to basically get it in the format that you want it presented to whomever you're presenting it to, right? So there's basically two different uses for it. Date trunc for manipulating dates, tochar for presenting that date. And that's really it for this video. So if you found it helpful, I appreciate any sorts of likes, comments, subscribes, anything like that. And I hope that you have a great rest of the day.